Welcome to the Erie Wellness Podcast, your go-to source for all things health, wellness, and living your best life right here in Erie. I'm your host, Lauren Brunetti, and I'm so excited to have you here. Each episode will dive into conversations with local experts and wellness professionals who are making an impact in the world of health and well-being. Before we jump in, be sure to like, share, and comment on this episode. We love hearing from you and seeing our community grow. Now let's get started. Welcome to the podcast, Dana. We are so excited to have you here today. Your journey is truly inspiring, from navigating the challenges of being a young athlete caught in the pressures of looking the part to breaking free from food rules and learning how to fiercely support your body. Your story of overcoming disordered eating and dedicating over a decade to learning, growing, and helping others is both powerful and relatable. Through your business, A Dash of Dana, you've created an incredible space for athletes and active individuals to redefine what it means to fuel your body, move beyond outdated messaging to a place of true nourishment and strength. Whether someone is balancing sport, work, or family life, your message of fueling fiercely resonates on so many levels. We can't wait to dive into your insights and learn more about how we can all better support our bodies in both life and sport. Welcome, Dana.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, first off, let's talk a little bit, since it is the Erie Wellness Podcast. Let's learn a little bit about what brought you to Erie or this area of Colorado.
Yeah, so I've just kind of started venturing north my whole time in Colorado, and I really loved the small town feel of Erie. I've been here for about 6 years now, so it was much smaller than it is now, but really loved the small town kind of feel of everything. So.
Awesome. We've been here almost 10 years, and I feel like that it's changing, but it still has small town feel. Bridge Street still has all those I don't know, it still feels like a small town with the farmers market and stuff on the weekdays during the summer and everything like that, but it's definitely growing. So I can totally relate.
Yes.
But what type of clients do you typically work with here in Erie?
Yeah, so I primarily work with endurance athletes and active individuals. So, I always want to keep in mind that athletes and active individuals are truly anybody that intentionally seek out moving their bodies. So I see some of my kind of everyday people that don't define themselves as an athlete really pushing their body and working out and training for hours per week. And this is being an athlete. So that is the bulk of my population.
In terms of your client profile, so what percent would you say is just active individuals, and then what percent would you say are athletes, and what are those athletes training for that you're helping them with?
Yeah, so I probably have about 20% as more of the general active population, and then the 80% is training for an actual event. So I have anywhere from, people that are just starting, where they're like, hey, I just signed up for this 5K or this 10K, help. So they're just starting, all the way through ultra distance events. So we think of a full Ironman to, ultra runs, that can vary anywhere from 50K up to 100 miles. So I have a variety of athletes that I work with. And, it's pretty cool. It's super fun. Each one's very unique. So.
And can you share a little bit about your journey and what led you to becoming a sports dietitian specializing in these athletes and active individuals?
Yeah. So really this, we kind of highlighted in the intro of just I was a young, impressionable athlete, received kind of poor messaging from coaches and trainers, and got caught up in quote unquote looking like an athlete. And unfortunately, this led to an eating disorder, disordered eating, and really persistent habits for over a decade. And in that time, I worked with an incredible team, and one of the professionals that really stood out to me was the dietitian. I really connected with her. And so I just started to become curious about what it would look like to live a life without food rules, and what it would mean to like fiercely support my body in sport, but also in just life, so that I could truly excel in all aspects. And so yeah, that was it. And throughout all of that, I saw that gap in education that was being provided to athletes, and I wanted to change that. I wanted to be somebody that was like a sound voice in that space for athletes specifically, so that they didn't feel like they needed to look a certain way or shrink their bodies in order to perform well, and so on and so forth. So,
what would you say are some of the unique nutritional needs that women have at different stages of life?
We are really just breaking the ground in the research that is provided for females. A lot of our research to date has been done on men. So we have a lot to learn, but we're moving, and we're going to keep learning as we go. But really overarching, what I see is women don't eat enough. We have lived so much in a mindset of move more, eat less. And so we have low energy availability. And when we see low energy availability, this begins to downregulate everything: our resting metabolic rate, our thyroid function, our reproductive function. And so it causes this full cascade of events to happen that really just decrease how our body is functioning and in its fullest. So that's overarching, like in all stages of life, what I see. When we look at like our reproductive years, so we look at like our 20s and 30s, the menstrual cycle and different nutrients we need throughout our cycle and how to support that is really important in an active population too. And especially endurance athletes, and I know I was told this at a young age, is like, oh, you're active, it's normal to lose your cycle. And it's not. It is not normal to lose your cycle. Like, having a menstrual cycle every 28 to 30, 35 days roughly is good. Like, this is healthy. This means your body is functioning normally as a woman in their 20s and 30s. And so we really want to support that. And a part of that is getting enough total energy, total calories, and then also looking at how to support that luteal phase, which is the 2 weeks before you start your cycle. We have a slight uptick in our hunger, which is where those cravings and premenstrual syndrome, or PMS, comes from. Is we need a little bit more nutrition, and specifically we want to focus on complex carbohydrates. So we think of like carbs that have fiber in them: whole grains, beans, legumes, quinoa, brown rice, things like that. Omega-3 rich foods, fatty fish, flaxseed, walnuts, chia seed are going to be good ones. Magnesium rich foods, leafy greens, dark chocolate, your nuts and seeds, things like that. And then iron rich foods. So beef, leafy greens, seafood, beans, darker poultry meat is going to be beneficial. So that's super beneficial in that phase. And then in perimenopause and menopause, again, I would say this is probably our most understudied area in research, but the common theme here, and most people have heard this at this point, is like, we need more protein. Estrogen specifically is starting to decline, and then once we hit menopause, it's actually flatlined. And estrogen is the dominating hormone in your body's ability to maintain muscle mass, maintain bone density. It's really important for total hormone function in your system. And so protein is really important for maintaining, especially muscle mass and that bone density. So that's going to be really, really important. And then the last factor I wanted to touch on is women specifically are very sensitive to what's called a catabolic or fasting state. And this is your post-workout window of opportunity. We need to refuel within 30 to 45 minutes after our session because we return to baseline blood glucose levels or blood sugar levels within an hour. So if we're not refueling and we're staying in a catabolic or breakdown state, then the first thing to go is your lean body mass or your muscle, which that's why we're working out. We want to gain muscle. We want to get stronger. So that's the first thing to go. So, refuel, make that a priority. And as I tell all my clients, like, make that a non-negotiable. Like, we don't have excuses for post-workout. We have a plan and we do it. So those are the big ones that I see.
Okay. And then going back to the last part of your response, I have a question. So sometimes some people feel like they need to work out like first thing in the morning or it's not going to happen. What are your thoughts on getting those early morning workouts and how that also impacts your hormones?
Yeah. So if you are working out first thing in the morning, females specifically, to eat no matter what.
Before you work out?
Yes. Yep. No matter what. Carbohydrates, a little bit of protein if you tolerate that well, but women don't respond well to that fasted state. And the reason for this is on our hypothalamus, which is a center in our brain, we have two areas for our neuropeptide called kisspeptin. And men only have one of these. So kisspeptin, primary function of that is for reproduction. And it also has a really big impact on mood, behavior, appetite, libido. So this triggers a huge stressor in the body. Exercise is also a stressor. And it's productive. Like, I don't want to make exercise seem like it's bad. It's a productive stressor. We need stress in order to see a change. But if we're piling stress on top of stress, the body doesn't respond well to that. And females, we are very, very sensitive to that. So really be cognizant of that. Fasted training and workouts, the research has been done on clinically obese, sedentary men trying to lose weight for surgery or metabolic control. There's very few research studies on females. So just keep that in mind.
What other misconceptions do you often encounter about female nutrition and movement? And how do you help clients navigate them?
Yeah. I really do like to take an evidence-based approach to my my practice, and I like to. I think most people want to know why. Why am I doing this, or why am I not doing this? And that's what I like to help them decipher through all the noise. And so that's kind of part one. But I see a lot of that kind of eat less, move more. Fasted training is a big thing. The keto diet, intermittent fasting, and more overarching when we look at eat less, move more, fasted training, intermittent fasting. If we are training first thing in the morning, that can be really challenging on the system. There's a huge array of intermittent fasting types, and for females specifically, we want to try to eat to our circadian rhythm. And so if you say are training in the morning, we eat definitely before, after our workouts. And then maybe we stop eating earlier in the evening. So we have an intentional overnight fast of 12 to 13 hours. And so that's one way that you can do that if that feels good for your system. And then, we always come back to the question of how are you feeling? If that doesn't feel good for you, if you're going to bed hungry and you're not able to sleep, it's probably not the best option for you. So what else can we do there? And then the keto diet, I like to help people kind of understand the benefits of fiber in your diet, and having a diverse fiber intake is going to promote healthier gut microbiome. And so that that in realms of longevity of health is really important to consider. We can't deny the power of a healthy gut. So yeah, those are the big ones that I see.
As people set new health goals for the new year, how can lab testing help them create a more personalized and effective nutrition plan?
Yeah, so I always say labs are literally a kind of peek inside your body as what's going on in here. And so a great way to look at those labs and use them as a way, a data point more or less, is we look at the different micronutrients in there. If we look at more kind of lipid profiles, things like that, we're now able to have a personalized nutrition plan based on literally what's happening inside your body. And if it's more like heart health or blood sugar balance, we might look at kind of overarching themes of what we can do to change that. Or if we need to really look at specific markers in there and correct any deficiencies, that's what we're doing. My motto is we always test before we just blindly supplement with whatever is out there on the market, because we want to make sure we're not just over supplementing, because that could be a huge issue too. So
what are some early signs that someone might not be eating enough to support their lifestyle?
Yeah, so fatigue is going to be the main one. Poor muscle recovery, irritability and mood swings. We've all heard of being hangry. This is a big one. Inadequate sleep or not restful sleep. So maybe you're waking up at kind of odd hours in the middle of the night suddenly. Typically we see this happen between 2 and 4 a.m. And this is actually due to a blood sugar crash. Your body's waking itself up. And certainly a more blaring symptom is that loss of menstrual cycle, that we're like, oh, something's wrong. But yeah, those are going to be the early ones. We might see brittle hair and nails in this category, things like that.
You mentioned blood sugar balance, which is a topic that I love to discuss. Blood sugar balance plays a huge role in our energy levels and overall health. What are some practical tips for maintaining steady blood sugar balance?
Yeah, so it starts in the morning. Breakfast within 60 minutes of waking up is what I like to see, before caffeine. So if you are wake up, roll out of bed, start my coffee pot, or start my whatever, all the fancy coffees out there now, have something to eat with your coffee in the morning. Caffeine is a stimulus, right? And so if we have what's called your cortisol awakening response as a rapid surge in cortisol within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, if we have this rapid response in the morning, we have caffeine, it's keeping that cortisol high, which then plays a role in how our energy balance is the rest of the day. We typically see a pretty drastic crash after that because we haven't had any food. Food is energy. Caffeine is false energy. So keep that in mind. So breakfast within 60 minutes of waking, and include a protein and a carb. So I really like to drive that home. We don't want just a bowl of cereal or a bowl of oatmeal. We want some protein with that. I like to see 20, 30 grams of protein, specifically for that blood sugar balance. If we just have carbohydrate, then that carb is going to absorb really fast, and it's going to cause a rapid surge in blood sugar and then a blood sugar crash on the other side. So that's number one.
I was going to ask, what does 20 or 30 grams of protein look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I typically say just make a fist. About the size of your fist is about 20, 30 grams, or typically closer to 30 grams of protein for most people. If we look at 3 eggs, that's 20, 21 grams of protein. If we look at, I have several people that like to do just a scoop of protein in a scoop of protein powder in their oatmeal. That's typically 25, 30 grams of protein. About a half a cup 3/4 of a cup, depending on what Greek yogurt you buy. That's about 20 grams of protein. Cottage cheese, same thing. So your animal proteins are going to be a little bit more dense, where we do like about a fist-sized chicken breast, beef, things like that. Those are going to be closer to 30 grams of protein.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that's nutrition. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of blood sugar balance, about like other aspects?
Yeah. So meal timing throughout the day is a big one. So, eating every 3 to 5 hours, and really, truly like leaning into this. If you are not eating roughly on those times, it's going to feel a little bit wonky at first because your hunger cues aren't super intact. But that's going to be really important. Walking after meals. So this does not have to be anything elaborate. It can be 5 minutes. It can be a lap around your house or whatever you want to do. But walking a little bit after your meals really helps balance your blood sugar, and super great research to support that, which is great. And then actually the way you eat. So eating protein and fiber on your plate first, and then your carbohydrate choice. Especially if you're working on driving that A1C down, this is a really great way to do that.
Okay. So like salad and protein first, like depending on obviously what your fiber is, like for dinner, and then like having some of the carbs. Okay. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've been actually doing like just like I'll go check the mail after dinner. So I've been kind of following that like recommendation of getting a walk in after. And it's been really nice. I mean, it's cold, but it's nice to get some fresh air, and people still have up their Christmas lights. So that's nice just to kind of enjoy some fresh air for like literally 10 minutes. Then I go back inside. But
yeah, that's perfect. I love that.
Okay. So what are some other steps that people can do to restore their baseline nutrition and ensure they're getting the right balance of macronutrients?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing is making sure that you have, I like to look at this as like building a performance plate. And so every season of life really looks different for most people. And so that performance plate has protein, fat, carb, color on it. And we can really keep this simple and think about, for you, like what is realistic for you. For a lot of people, they don't like to spend hours and hours in the kitchen. And so sometimes it's prepping those components of those, like prepping some protein foods, having protein and fat usually kind of cross over, or your preparation of like your veggies. You might use avocado oil or olive oil or something like that. And so that usually crosses over. And then your carbohydrates, having a couple different options to choose from for the week, and the color, which can be your veggie choice. That can be, tied in however you want. Like myself, for example, I like to do a huge sheet pan of veggies through the week or for the week. And I just make a bunch of different things with all the colors and have that to pick and choose from, and, make it pretty easy. But I think that's like the biggest thing to pay attention to is just like getting those components in, paying attention, and really truly being honest with yourself of like, how much activity am I doing? Not just physically going to the gym or going out for a run or a bike or whatever the case may be, but also like, what else does your day look like? Are you a parent? Are you running around chasing kiddos? What else are you out walking your dog, 3 times a day? Like, what else are you doing in your life, and how can you support that? And your performance plate shifts on that. And so, on like kind of an easier day, you'll see your carbohydrate as a quarter of your plate, your protein as a quarter of your plate, and half of your plate is that like fruit and veggie component. And then as we progress, you'll see that carbohydrate shift from like that quarter to a third to half. And so as your volume of whatever you're doing, of activity you're doing or training that you're doing increases, your carbohydrates need to increase to support that. And so that's the biggest I think the biggest way.
Like when working with clients, do they like send you pictures of their meals? Like, are you just going over weekly, like what they ate throughout the week? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I work through a platform called Practice Better, which yes, they can take pictures. Some people like to manually log their food. I do not have them track calories or macros because that truly is just not how human physiology works. We literally need different nutrition every single day. And so, yeah, so that's what we're doing a lot of. And I'll look at, I'll look at a day and provide feedback in their journal and say, hey, I would like to see you add more protein here. Here's how you can do that. And kind of my motto more or less is like, each time that we eat, how can we sit down and ask ourselves, how can we add value to our plate? And sometimes you're like, no, my plate looks really great today. Like I'm doing good. And sometimes you're in a situation where you're like, you're on the go and you're like, cool, I have a bar. Something's always going to be better than nothing. So that's okay too. And then we just add value at that next meal or the next time we sit down to eat.
Are there any other dietary like strategies that you have to support hormonal health? We talked about hormones at the beginning and to prevent those imbalances that can impact our energy and our performance.
Yeah. So hormones molecular structure is a fat. And so we know that adequate fat intake and adequate body fat in general supports hormone balance. And so getting enough fat in your diet is pretty key. And, I think fats probably in like the 90s got a really bad reputation.
Yeah.
But fats will not make you fat. And so that's really important to remember is we literally, like our bodies need fat. We have to have it. And, you can kind of look at your daily intake and for females, I like to see about 25% of your total intake come from fat. And remember, this can be your oils, it can be avocado, nuts and seeds or nut and seed butters, things like that, like grass-fed beef, grass-fed butters, like those are good fats to consume. Fatty fish that have more of those omega-3 profile, those are going to be great to consume. So, and honestly, total energy intake and keeping that up. Those are the primary things to keep your hormones happy.
Okay. What are some like simple, actionable steps listeners can take to better support their nutrition and overall well-being?
Keep it simple. I don't overcomplicate things. I think social media, especially today, makes it seem like we need to have this kind of quote unquote like perfect diet or perfect way of going to the gym and doing our workouts and things like that. But the reality is nutrition and fitness should truly fit your lifestyle. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable. So keep it simple, keep it realistic for your lifestyle. Something I like to work on is having somebody, or you can write down your non-negotiables for the day or for the week or for the quarter, however that works with your schedule, and plan your training and your nutrition around that. So if you have kiddos that are in sports, that's a non-negotiable, right? If you have work, right, that's a non-negotiable. So plan around those things and make it realistic for you. And also be cognizant of your energy and time that you want to spend in the kitchen and all of that stuff to make it realistic with your schedule. I said this earlier, but starting small, look at one meal per week or even a snack or however that works for you, and just ask yourself, how can I add value to this meal? Thinking about those performance plates, so protein, fat, carb, color. What can you do to add value? Can you add a fruit or vegetable? Can you add protein or fiber? Like make it simple for yourself in the beginning and start small, and then you can build on that as you go. So I would say those are the key points.
Those are both great tips. Yeah. For those that are interested in working with you, what's the best way to get started?
Yeah, so I do have a coaching application on my website. That's always helpful just to streamline, folks coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But you can always follow me on Instagram or reach out via email if you just want to chat. I do a free, like, I call it a goals call or a goal setting call.
Mm-hmm.
So I do offer a free 20-30 minute call just to chat, and see if we're a good fit for one another
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. So any of those modalities are great for me.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Dana, so much for joining us today on the podcast. Your insights and just your journey itself are inspiring, and we're so grateful for your wisdom and knowledge that you've shared about fueling our bodies and redefining what it means to support ourselves as athletes and as individuals. Before we wrap up, Dana has an incredible offer for our Erie Wellness podcast listeners. You can take advantage of these two amazing opportunities. One is 50% off your first month of the DDN Insiders membership, and two is a 20% off biomarkers and 1 hour analysis and review of labs, supplements, and intake. So these offers are a fantastic way to dive into a deeper understanding of your body and health, and be sure to check out the details in the show notes and don't miss out on these great offers. So thank you again, Dana, for being a part of this episode. And to all our listeners, we appreciate you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks so much.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Erie Wellness Podcast. I truly appreciate you being a part of this journey. If you loved today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. For more daily wellness inspiration and behind-the-scenes content, be sure to follow me on Instagram at the Erie Wellness Podcast. I can't wait to connect with you again soon.